Good morning, guys. Welcome to this Tuesday, May 27th. Last few days of May, then we run into June next week. Gold is going to be rolling this week over to the August expiration. Of course, we had some action going on over the weekend as well, and it's not a day where nothing isn't happening in this new administration. Uh, Remember Friday we had this big sell-off in the morning. Just started off, everything just fell apart when Trump said he was going to dump 50%, put 50% tariffs on the EU because they were not negotiating. And over the weekend they extended that with a month, and that was that. Yeah, so that popped the market pretty good in the overnight. Going into Monday, and so far they've been holding on to that in the overnight, and now we've seen a little bit of extensions uh, in this overnight trading. Yesterday's overnight was over here. They were holding on to that pretty good, and then in this overnight there was a little bit of weakness in going into it, but then they recovered and now back up again. So we are back up in this upper range, given so tariff talks back and forth. That's market reacting, but we had this big sell-off. Remember that? And on Friday, and it just looked pretty ugly. And then, of course, everything has completely reversed. Now they extended it for a month, or they delayed that 50% tariff for a month. But it's just a pure example of how you can change the dynamics, and then in talks like that, or change the dynamics of any situation. But before we get there, let's take a look at the news. Nothing going on in terms of, well, hang on, this is Tuesday. So today we get at 8:30 durable goods. We get the home case chiller housing data at 9. That's case chiller and FHFA. Consumer confidence at 10. 2-year auction at 1. Now, 2-year auctions, maybe the small auctions or the short-term paper auctions, 2, 5, and 7 coming up this week. Should pay attention to that. I'm thinking they're moving away from funding government on the short-term debt like Yellen was doing, but still worth watching. Anyway, so 8:30, 9, and 10 we have news. We have Kashkari already spoke. We have Thomas Parkin speaking as well. So one more Fed speaker, but it could be some market moving news in here. Tomorrow, an OPEC meeting. That's going to be an oil is going to be on tap, or oil is going to be impacted tomorrow sometime, I would think. What else do we have? Nothing at 8. Mortgage apps. Richmond Fed manufacturing at 10 tomorrow. 5-year auction. Fed minutes at 2. And on Thursday we get the GDP read. Would be the second read. Jobless claims. 7-year auction. On Friday, we get inflation data, personal income and outlays. Get that PCE index come out there. So at 8:30 on Friday, we get some interesting news, and the 9:45 and 10. So fair amount of news this week. Definitely could be some action going on. Also, we're closing out the month of May, and that's going to probably could be some rebalancing going on in some funds and some institutions. So I would start off from the long side, given this retracement. So we had this big run down here Friday. They ran it hard to the downside, a little bit of retracement, but not much. But still reverse retesting support here at the 58.20s. And then, of course, the news came. Yeah, we had extended it, and boom, the whole thing started taking off to the upside in a big way. It happened actually right after the open, and right after the Sunday open, so it's like a late announcement. And the market had opened, and you saw it just taking off to the upside in a big way. And then we were trading up here again, so right back up in this upper range. And then now you can see the overnight, the London session has taken this even higher. So we are back up here to this attractor at the 59.05s. So I would start off on the long side. I would look to buy weakness, 58.95s, 58.80s, 70s down to the 65, 60, 65s here for rotations back up. It starts trading below the session lows at the 60, 65s. I would start thinking I would take off the long bias. If you want to be more aggressive, you can already do it at 58.80. The way it's been volatile, I'm just gonna give it a little bit more range, but it looks to me like they're trying to take this higher. So I'm looking to buy weakness, at least against the 95s, 58.95s and 58.80s for rotations back up. And depends on when you want to take off the long bias. I'm still looking to buy against the 58.70s and 58.60, 65s here for rotations back up again. It starts trading below that session low, start retracing these single print Ts on the overnight reaction. I would definitely take off the long bias and start looking for a retracement trade. Watch this lower edge, that 58.30s that comes out. It's by the 58.25 to 35s. That area comes out. I would be more inclined to hop on the short side of the market and see how far it can take it on the downside. So that is the ES to get started. Not going to be super aggressive on the short side just yet. Until they get up above towards these upper areas. So they start heading up to the 59.60s, up to the 59.90, up to the last 30 points there. I would be more inclined to look for short setups. But on the way up here, not so much. If they start grinding this to the upside, I would stay on the long side of this and see how far they can take it. Now, if they can't really extend a whole lot, we have an attractor area right about here. That area is the 59.05s. They're trading right around there now. So if they can't really take this a whole lot higher, I would probably be staying range bound right kind of where we are right now. But I got a good sense that we may see a little bit of strength coming into the day here. So you can see, things stall, things doesn't work out. Trump has a good knack of changing the dynamic of the situation. Yes, changes stuff around. Anyway, on the bond side of things, we are back on with a nice little retracement right back up to the 112s again. So that move to the downside on the bonds, gonna pull up my capital flow on that guy. And we are rolling bonds as well, also this week to the September expiration. The bonds and golds are rolling this week. So on the bond side of things, we are definitely back down here at we're retracing back up here above this ledge here at the 112, 15, 16s. So you're trading right there now. So if they can hold that ledge together, that would be a pretty good feat, and probably going to stay on the long side. Initially, at least, looking to buy weakness at 112.12s, 12.06s. To start trading out down below 06s, I think we're back down in this lower range again. And I would take off the long bias and just go back to range bound. So watch that on the bond. So below that 12, 12, and so looking to buy against 12.12 and the 112.06 for rotations back up. But if they take out that sixes, then take off the long bias and go back range bound. But if we're back up off the lows, it's a good sign for bonds. Let's see if they can hold it together. Looking at the Nasdaq, also nice move to the upside, holding on to the gains at least for now. So I would stay on the long side on the Nasdaq as well to get started. And Nasdaq is in pretty good shape actually. They're pretty close to their highs here. So I would be looking at short setups when we get up here to the 21,500 and above. It could be a short up here against the 21,400, that mode that runs up to this mode right there. Could be a nice bounce of that, at least in the short term. This first time to the level, right? But I would start from the long side. Let's see how far I can take it. I would be mindful about that 21,400 level, and also when it gets up above that 21,500. Look for short setups against that upper edge. Look for failure to take that out. But at this point, starting from the long side and on the way down, just to pay attention to that. If they start taking out these ledges at the 21,050s and 60s, I would be back on the short side looking for a move to the downside at that point. So we've got some range to work on the Nasdaq, but initially looking to buy against that 280s, 240s, 212s, oh, 212, 210s, 170s down to 21, 130s. Below the, I would say 21, 200s or 210s. I would take off the long bias and give it a little bit more room than the ES. Still looking to buy against that 170 and the 130 to 40s here for rotations back up. And below 130s, we stay on the short side, look for a retracement trade on these single prints. See, I can say I'm gonna try to push it lower. You never know when they start, if this is just overnight trading and then the day station is kind of try to knock it down. Because I mean, you can look at this from different ways. You can look at it like, yeah, you have a whole month and you're going to work out the deal, or oh my gosh, we only have a month, and then freak out about that. So it just depends how the market's going to digest the information here in the overnight. All right, so that's the so both ES and Nasdaq. I'm starting from the long side. Let's see how far I can take it on the upside if this little rally has legs. Gold kind of melting down a bit, pardon the pun. It's not looking like they have a bad overnight. They are moving to the Q expiration, the August expiration here this week. I'm going to send out an email about the rollovers. But looking at this guy right now, we are still in this bigger volume edge, but right at that lower edge at the 3290s. Watch that 3285 to 3290, 3300s. If this area comes out, this low volume area gets challenged again, and they start taking that out, we can run it easily down here to that 3230 attractor area. So that's this volume edge right there. If that comes out, I would be more inclined to hop on the short side and see how far I can take it. But first, look for a failure to take it out. So looking to buy against support, 3285s, 80s. Maybe down to the 75s. At that point, we are down here in range. But I would be looking to buy against these three support areas for rotations back up. And if they can't take out that area, it's probably going to be failure to take it out, and we may see a retracement back up towards that 3340s again. So 3330 and 40s is kind of where they had the bulk of the volume. But at this point, looking to buy against these support areas. But if this whole area comes out, I would look for a move all the way down to that 3230. So it could be a nice 50, 60 point move to the downside there. All right, and if it holds, look for moves to the upside. So initially, I'm looking to sell strength though on gold. So 32.95, 33.05, or 33.03. 33.12 for rotations back down. So these three resistance there. They take out that London high. I think we are retracing at that point. So initially looking for shorts against that 32.95s, 33.04, 33.12 for rotations back down. All right. So that's gold. And then watch this lower support there. That holds, we may see a nice retracement right back up again. Not quite there yet, I think. And then oil. Not much to say about oil. That this range bound, that trading right here in the middle of the range. And the big question marks here is going to be Russian oil and Iranian oil. And then if they start doing sanctions, hardcore sanction on Russia, they could certainly pop the oil prices in the short term. So I mean that's something to watch for if they go forward with that. But I think listening to how that whole thing is developing, I think chances are they're going to be doing some sanctions. So we'll see. But anyway, I would trade oil range band right now, but look out for that news. If they start dropping those sanctions, I think you're probably see a short-term spike in prices on oil until that supply-demand equation balances itself again. So initially looking to sell strength against the 61.70s, 62.40s for rotations back down. Looking to buy against the 61.15s, 60.80s for rotations back up again. Maybe down to the 60.30s. I mean, it could be a nice buying opportunity down here as well. But we start heading up above the 62.40s or below that 60.30s and look for a potential directional move. And I think in the short term, chances are the price is going to go higher because of potential sanctions dropping on Russia. All right, so that's oil and gold. So oil range band right now. Watch for that for news on that sanction front, and gold start from the short side above that 33.12. Take off the short bias and go back range bound. Look for a retracement trade at that point. All right, then back to the ES, and so far, okay, a little bit of action going on, but not a whole lot. So we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. So the overall volume is not crazy, so we'll looks like you have a pretty decent open at least. So let's see how this whole thing shakes out, and if they gonna be able to hold on to this little gain they had in overnight. Alrighty, guys, we'll wrap it there. So I'll see you back at 11:30 for the next update. So good trading, and I'll see you back then.